Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'd like to take a look at some upcoming Ogrepon decks from the set Twilight Masquerade. So the big monkey himself is the main star of the set and comes in no less than 4 flavors, which is really cool. So in my personal opinion, what is really cool about Ogrepon, not just the card itself, even though I think the artwork is lovely, and the ability is very cool, and the attack is very cool, what I find really fascinating and just really awesome in general about Ogrepon is the fact that it's essentially a useful box attacker and a way of drawing cards and accelerating energy at the same time. And as you'll see with these lists, now there is 2 that are very, very similar, but aside from those 2 lists, there is just so much variety across the board in terms of what you can do and what you can build with Ogrepon. So basically, if you acquire 2 or 3 of these, it just opens the door up to so many different decks. So you're not just building one single build, I should say. So yeah, just in my opinion, what I find really cool about Ogrepon. So yeah, should also be useful for crafting these things. Like, I'm pretty sure they'll give us these on PCG Live as one of the free decks, but we'll have to see how that goes. But I would assume they would, at least, with it being the mascot of the set. But you never know, they might not. So yeah, what does Ogrepon actually do? So very quickly, if you don't know what it does, has the ability Teal Dance. A very simple ability. You can attach a grass energy from your hand to Ogrepon. If you do, draw a card. Very useful, just keeps the decks consistent, as well as giving you some energy acceleration, which will be useful in many different ways, as we'll see shortly. And then the single attack that it has for 3 grass energy, sorry. I thought it was 2 grass energy for some reason. No, 3 grass energy. Myriad Leaf Shower does 30 damage and then 30 more for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. So, not the greatest attack in the world, truth be told. Like, you will need a lot of energy in play, as well as your opponent having at least 2 or 3 energy on their opponent's active for this to be doing really, really good damage, unless you're playing Charizard or something, and even then, you'll need a whole bunch of energy. But either way, Ogrepon typically won't be the main attacker in most of these decks anyway. But, it's there as a nice option to have. But yeah, so going into this first list here is the classic Ogrepon deck, which is basically the deck that they kind of showcased when they were first revealed Twilight Masquerade. And it's going to be Ogrepon Box, playing all 4 of the different Ogrepons, including 3 copies of the Fighting type one, which has a very useful ability that basically just protects it from Pokemon with an ability. So it just means that other Ogrepon, as well as, Charizard is like the big one really, but things like Charizard and Chien-Pao can't attack that Ogrepon, which is really good. It's also a fighting type, which means that because you run Luminous Energy, what you can do with this deck, if you didn't know this already, basically what you can do is attach a Luminous Energy to your Grass Ogrepon, use the ability twice across 2 different turns, and then use the item, the one that's right next to Earthen Vessel, between Earthen Vessel and Hisuian Heavy Ball, I should say, the new Ogrepon Mask. That will allow you to just switch an Ogrepon EX in play with 1 in your discard pile. So you can basically just switch the grass type Ogrepon with either, the fighter type one. Maybe you want to do the water type one, which has a snipe move that does 100 and then 120 snipe somewhere, which is quite nice. Then you also have the fire type one, I believe. Yeah, the fire type one, which only does like 20 damage for each damage counter on it. It's not super, super great because your Ogrepons aren't the tankiest things in the world. Yeah, they are quite fragile, funnily enough. But you do play things like Big Charm in this list anyway, so hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, the Earthen Vessel is quite nice. Earthen Vessel will just help with finding grass energy as well as discarding Ogrepons. But yeah, the mask is definitely the key card here. And what's really cool about this list is because you're playing so many Ogrepons, you're also playing the Tatsugiri, you're playing 4 of the new mask. Most of this deck comes out in one set. So if you were to, if you're someone who bulk buys, I guess, a lot of one set in a go, or maybe you go to multiple pre-releases or something, or a league every week, then this should be fairly easy to build over time. Like, I think Ogrepon might be a bit expensive on debut. It's kind of a popular Pokemon, at least in my opinion. Very collectible with being 4 of them. But either way, it should be fairly simple to pick up. And yeah, the trainer count's nothing too crazy. 2 Colorless Experiment, I guess, is fine. I think that's Colorless Experiment. It's either, it has to be Colorless Experiment because the Colorless that was revealed the other day won't be until like the set after this one. So yeah, got a bit of a wee wait there. And also, if you don't know what the new Tatsugiri does, it just says you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck and take a supporter card, which is really helpful. And the Beach Court Stadium will just give everything free retreat as well, which is nice, except Radiant Charizard. So yeah, pretty cool stuff overall. And then we can move on to, personally, my least favorite build. Now, don't come at me if you're a Blissey fan, but this is just my 2 cents. I personally don't think Blissey is the best partner for Ogrepon. Maybe Ogrepon is the best partner for Blissey, and that might be saying a lot about Blissey, but Japan seems to really like Blissey, and they're doing a lot of things with it. I'm personally not super sold on this card, but basically it just allows you to move an energy from one Pokemon to another one. It's kind of just like energy switch. You can also like swing for 180. It has 300 HP. The attack also allows you to draw until you have 6 cards in hand, which is quite nice. But to be honest, I'm not like super sold on this kind of deck. I mean, it's it's kind of like really tough in a way. Like sometimes it'll be really good, and then other times your hands will just they'll just fail. You'll just clutter up. You're too slow. You're a clunky deck. But yeah, at least you have draw power from Ogrepon this time round. At least Blissey can draw cards when it attacks. So there is potential there, at least to find stuff like Palpad, Charon's Care to loop them, because 300 HP is still a lot for stage 1, right? 2 prize, stage 1, 300 HP, it's a lot. But yeah, personally, not sold on this. Also, you have Rigid Band, actually, which is quite funny. Yeah, I think that's Rigid Band. That's Rigid Band or Choice Belt? I think that's Rigid Band, though. Yeah, the one from 151 that lets your stage 1s take 30 less damage from attacks, which is quite funny. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. It's nothing really too crazy. I like Pokegear decks, personally. I really like Pokegear as a card. I like Palpad. But yeah, I honestly don't think I'll be trying this list out in a hurry. Unless I pull like 4 Blissey day 1, I'm probably not going to try this. But yeah, that's enough me pooping on this deck. Moving on. Now, we do have a really cool variant of Raging Bolt, which is a card that seems to have an unlimited amount of variance, between Palkia, the regular turbo build, then you've got like Gardevoir, and like, what was the other one? There was another Raging Bolt deck that was kicking around for a while that was really weird. But yeah, Raging Bolt Ogrepon. I'm not sure if 3 energy is the way to go with Raging Bolt, just because the deck doesn't really have much of a built-in draw engine anyway. But having said that, Ogrepon will allow you to draw a card every time you use its ability, so maybe there's some potential here. Also, the new item, which is the one that's next to Pokegear and Switch Cart, that new Bug Catcher set, will allow you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck and take 2 in any combination of Grass Pokemon and Grass Energy, which is quite nice. So you will be able to, discard them with Earth Vessel and things. Like, Grass Energy will not help you pay for basically anyone else's attacks, but still, it will allow you to draw some cards, and you can still discard them with Raging Bolt. So it's kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, I guess it's kind of cool. I'm trying to think if this is like strictly better than the regular turbo build. I guess maybe so. Like if I was to play this, I'd probably just kick the shoes altogether. Like remove trekking shoes. Maybe just add like what would I add actually? It's a good question. Probably a second energy retrieval, or maybe a second boss's orders, and then probably something like, I don't know, a Koraidon. Like, so I think you need a single prize attacker in this deck, really. Something, squishy for the early game. But yeah, pretty cool deck either way. Also, you could play Tatsugiri in this, actually. Maybe this player didn't have one, or they didn't think it was the right fit, but everything's a basic, so it makes sense with switching cards. I think Tatsugiri could be really cool. Definitely useful for finding Sada, because as Raging Bolt players will understand, and I was trying to play Raging Bolt a lot online, you do kind of need Sada every turn after a certain point in the game. So yeah, seems really cool though. Yeah, I'd probably give this one a go actually. It seems quite fun. Next up is we have, I'm kind of reluctant to talk about Regidrago V-Star because I swear like everyone who plays this deck swears by it and says it's like the secret BDF or like one of the best decks in the game. Cool, I guess. Like if this deck wins you every game you play with it, that's fine. Even if you have a good win rate with a deck, but I guarantee you, if Regidrago doesn't appear on a tier list video, there will always be at least one person commenting saying, "Where is Regidrago? Regidrago is super good. Regidrago is better than Arctina," and all the rest of it. Right? Personally, I still think this deck is way too clunky. Just like even with Ogrepon, like I still think it's too clunky. Like, Ogrepon is cool in theory, but then you have to, like, move the energy off Ogrepon onto Regidrago. Like, that attack cost is still so annoying. 1 grass, 1 fire, 1 colorless. It's still way too annoying. Even without Gardenia's... I mean, this list isn't even playing Gardenia's Maker. What am I saying? But yeah, you don't have Dragonite in this list either to accelerate some energy. Not sure about that. I mean, the new Dragapult is very strong, so that's a very nice option. 200 damage and then 60 spread, effectively. Very cool. You have Northern to wall out the basic decks that might be kicking around. Raging Bolt for a massive 1-hit KO move in the late game. That's really cool. This deck kind of feels like Zorak in a way, where every set it was like you get new things to play with. But truth be told, the deck wasn't really getting any better. In fact, sometimes it was actually getting worse because some people were like, "Oh, this new card is great, so we'll remove that card," and then, the deck ends up being full of like random stage ones and stuff. But personally, I'm not sold on Regidrago V-Star. However, for all of the Regidrago fans out there, don't know how many there are, but maybe there's a lot. I hope this build is useful for you, and you're able to play this and win a lot of games with it because it is cool. Like I do like playing techie decks like this, but Regidrago doesn't do it for me. I know I've like bashed 2 deck lists I've talked about today already, but yeah, it's not like my favorite build, but I felt like including it because people do believe in Regidrago, so good for them, I guess. Also, Scoop Up Cyclone is the A spec in here, by the way. If you didn't know what that card does, it just allows you to pick up any one Pokemon. Why is it in this list? I guess to remove things like Radiant Charizard if they get stuck. You could also remove Hawlucha and use it again, which is quite cool actually. Just means that Dragapult can start like sniping multiple Charmanders and things. So that's kind of cool, I guess. So maybe, yeah, Super Scoop Up should be good for Hawlucha. But at that point, I'd rather just play like Gardenia's Vigor in here and Tatsugiri, but maybe there's just not the space actually. But yeah, cool list though. Moving on, we have a slightly techier version of the last deck that we'll feature today. So this is the second last deck. This one is going to be a Sinstature Ogrepon deck, and this is very much a like mono grass deck. It's probably the closest we'll get to like a mono grass deck in standard, really. So if you don't know what these Sinstatures do, I don't blame you. They're not particularly great, but we'll talk about them either way. The Sinstature EX basically allows you to shuffle in grass energy from your discard pile, and you can basically do like 2 damage counters or something. It's not great. The EX, I personally think, is terrible. And at 240 HP, very, very fragile in this day and age. It being a stage 1 as well, it's a lot of effort. I personally do not see the point of playing the EX. Even if it's just a one-off for the late game, I personally would just say, yeah, don't worry about this card. Especially if it's, just as expensive as every other EX in the set for some daft reason, like EXs usually are. So yeah, watch out for that. But the baby Sinstature is actually pretty good. For 1 grass energy, you can discard up to 3 grass energy from your Pokemon in play, so including Ogrepon, which is great, and you do 70 damage for each one. So you will cap at 210, but 210 for a single grass energy, bear in mind you'd have to discard 3 of them in play. But 210 is a lot of damage to be doing from a single prize Pokemon. Like, that is a good chunk of damage to be doing. So it definitely sets up 2 kills on everything, especially when you have Ogrepon swinging for moderately decent damage. However, like the big downside here, of course, is Sinstature only has 70 HP. Or is it? Is it Sinstature? Maybe I'm getting them all mixed up. It's like Poltergeist. Oh, it's probably like Poltergeist or something. They all look the same. The really teacups, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. Kricketune. Kricketune gives your grass Pokemon plus 40 HP, so that will help a little bit. But truth be told, this deck probably just gets mauled by Dragapult. Like, I would not want to play that matchup, but yeah. Still quite funny though, and I'd be interested to see if this deck can actually beat Dragapult. But yeah, a very, very cool deck, and it does also benefit from the fact that most of it is from one set. So, if you did pick up multiple Ogrepons, like a pre-release or something, this would be quite cheap to put together. Yeah, you do get to play like 4 of the Bugcatcher set, which is just a fantastic card for consistency. So that's cool at least. Also got the Iron Leaves in here. I'm not sure if Iron Leaves is really that necessary. I guess it's like a more efficient one-hit kill on Zard, I guess. But truth be told, I'm not sure if you really need it. Wiredeer, I think, serves that purpose a lot better, just because Wiredeer can be more of a one-hit kill machine against other decks, not just Charizard. But that's just my 2 cents, could be very wrong. And also, the ace spec of choice here is Hero's Cape, which is interesting. So giving something plus 100 HP. Okay, I guess we can give Sinstature like another 100 HP, so it's now at 340. Yay, I guess. Basically just 10 more HP than Zard, and it takes up an A-spec slot. I mean, you could give it to something else, and that, I'm pretty sure that does actually stack with Kricketune as well, which is quite funny, but yeah, it's still a very cool option. Also got a Kieran in here, actually. I think it's Kieran. Is it Kieran? The supporter that lets you have 2 different choices. You can either switch out your active with a benched, or your Pokemon do plus 30 damage this turn to your opponent's active EX or V, which is quite nasty actually, because it means that the Sinstature, Poltergeist, whatever it is, can do 240, which is, it's not too shabby actually. Could definitely KO things like Raging Bolt, so that's nice to see. Very cool list. Also, Temple of Sinnoh, probably here to just try and stop Lugia, I guess, a bit. But yeah. Then we move on to the final list of this video, which is basically just going to be a more streamlined version of the one we just looked at. So very, very, very simple. Now, I personally prefer this list because it's just not as flippant as the first one. If that makes sense. You know, like this one just had a lot of stuff going on. Like I would say probably play the simpler version first and then come back to this one if you want to be a bit more adventurous. But it just really depends on what kind of player you are, you know? It's just one of those many things in Pokemon where it's just personal preference at the end of the day. I would personally say I prefer this build, but that's just because it's more streamlined and that's more appealing to me. But yeah, one thing I will say though is I don't agree with 18 Grass Energy. I think that's a bit over the top, especially without Gardenia's Vigor. Like, I do not think you need 18 Grass Energy, but yeah. Also says something about Gardenia's Vigor, doesn't it? That there's been virtually none of it in these Ogrepon decks. You know, that just says something about how bad that card is, really. But yeah, funnily enough. Either way, moving on, I think this deck is very cool, though. I do like it a lot. I guess because you're playing so many Grass Energy, you can get away with the EX card, the Stage 1 Poltergeist thing. But yeah, very cool list. 3 Temples of Sinnoh I do approve of. Definitely seems like a great card moving forward. 4 Pokemon Catcher is interesting. I'm not sure if that's really necessary. I'd probably just say like 2 Boss and a Counter Catcher and something else. Like, if it really has to be items, then probably just like 2 Counter Catcher. Like, you're probably not going to want to kill anything in the early game anyway. So your opponent will probably get to take 1 or 2 prizes. Also, no mana fee, which is a bit sus actually. No mana fee. Not sure about that, but either way, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about Ogrepon. Is there any like particular style of build that you'll be building? Personally, I think the last build that we looked at will be my go-to deck, apart from like the box deck, which looks really fun. But either way, let me know what you think down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.